Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call the special council meeting to order. For councilors, we've got special council meeting, then we've got general purposes committee, and then a closed general purposes committee. So I'll call to order the special council meeting. And there's one item on the agenda, which is the cancellation of the business license issued to Shameless Buns. So first of all, I'll go to staff. I'm not sure whether that's Cecilia or Tony or Carly. Is there anything to add to, it's a rather full explanation you've given to us, but is there anything to add?
I have nothing to add. Happy to ask questions, and wanted to point out too that I believe we have delegates from the business here.
Oh, yeah, that I know. And we'll get to them in just a second. All right, I'm not seeing anything. So we'll go to the two parties. We've got a delegations, Matt Brennan and then Corvette Romero. So first of all, I'll go to Matt Brennan. And I'll recognize you.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, thank you for having us today to discuss this situation. Obviously, it's been a very difficult and trying couple weeks, month and a half for us. Initially, all we really wanted to do was bring our food truck to Steveston and, show everybody what we had to offer. We were really proud of the fact that we were bringing new traffic to Steveston. In the letter that we sent, we've mentioned in our social media and so on and so forth that we have brought a massive influx of new traffic into Steveston. I know initially this was an issue regarding the businesses that were not happy that we were there, or sorry, I should rephrase, a select few businesses that were not happy that we were there. Obviously, this has turned into something much bigger, but it's been a very disappointing turn of events. As we did bring an influx of traffic into Steveston, we were supporting the Steveston Hub, which is a really great community initiative that gives back to the community. As we've mentioned, our rent goes to the Steveston Hub. We pay $250 every time we are active in Steveston. And so we were really proud of the fact that we were contributing to that. Additionally, we did receive our business license through Victor Duarte. Legally, we went through all of the hoops to get this business license. We provided absolutely everything that was required of us, and the city did grant us this business license legally. We obviously know that there is a bylaw that's come to the surface that nobody really was aware of, and now it's quite hypocritical, the fact that the bylaw is really only targeting us when there's many, many other businesses that are operating in parking lots, that are vending in parking lots, and throughout Richmond. So I'll hand it over to Corvette if you want to speak on the matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's not about the money here. We want to be treated fairly. Like Matt said, we obtained our license legally, and the fact that there are people saying there that we are violating the bylaws, we were not. We were granted business license. The fact is, city did not even know about this bylaw until they started digging for something. First, it was because the restaurants were complaining, and then secondly, now it's about this bylaw because that first thing that because we have over 30 signatures of local merchants that want and need us there. When we're there, we make a point to talk to people who receive dozens of from local businesses saying support us and they want us there, they need us there, and we had asked for a few things to compromise. There's been things that have been said that we are not willing to compromise here, and that's not the case at all. We had asked to, because of the fact that the city granted us this license legally, we had planned up, and we had dates booked, missed out on elsewhere because of it, that since the city had failed to recognize that there was this conflict in the matter, that, let us work with what we were working with until September, and then do what you want to do with it after. That is totally fine with us. But the fact is so swiftly and giving us basically, option one, move to Britannia Park, or we move to cancel your business license, not really factoring in the fact that we also offer the fact that you're wanting to take our license away completely, it doesn't make any sense and it's not fair. So we just want to be heard. We just want you to know that we are also wanting to work with you guys. But the fact is we keep getting stonewalled by, bylaws and by legality you guys clearly didn't even know about. We just want to be able to stay in Steveston until September and continue paying the hub the rent. We're there once a week, sometimes not even there at all. And after September, hey, fine, you know what? We can move on. The other option was, maybe Terra Nova Park, and even moving to Terra Nova Park, happy to take towards help them still, because that is one of the important things to us, is supporting them. So, but Britannia Park to us, and many people have said it, that it is not the best solution. It's a ghost town, and people that know it's there. It's not like there's a ton of foot traffic. And again, the Steveston merchants won't benefit from us there, so far away. So honestly, there's not a whole lot more we can say here. We've said as much as we can say, and we just know that, your whole is watching you right now. You're about to make an example and you're about to set a precedent. So it's just really about how you want to set it and what message you want to send to everyone.
Yeah, as we the solutions that we here is number one. I'd like to stay in Steveston at the Steveston hub until the end of our scheduled time, which is September. If that's not an option, we would be happy to look at alternative locations that is not Britannia Park. We do operate at the Crestwood Corporate Center as well, and we do operate, there's movie sets, private events as well. So losing our license altogether would be a blow to our business, and appreciate you considering a few of these options, and not just removing them. So,
again, last thing is the fact that the Steveston Farmers Market, there was someone selling spot products. The parking lot on Saturday. There's food trucks that park at Canadian Tire in a parking lot. So it's really tough to hear you guys say that we are operating legally and that an effect when it's all over your city, and we're the only ones being made an example of.
The one thing that I know was in the document was that we were using the parking lot, the empty park at Steve's Hub. I believe that happened once on the first day, and I know you have photos of that. That has not happened since. Our customers wait for their food in the Steveston Hub parking lot. So we are violating that. No going over to that parking lot. Because that is one of the things that you're using against us. I think we've said everything we need to say. I know there's been a lot of media. I know there's been a lot of support for both parties involved. We hope that you listen to us today. We appreciate you listening to us today. Happens. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I don't see anyone with their hand raised for questions, so thank you. We'll excuse the two of you. Based on what you have heard, staff, is there anything to add to that?
Through your worship, if I may, this is Tony, the city solicitor. I just want to point out a correction in Appendix A. The reference in paragraph 31 sub 3, 31 sub 3 refers to paragraph 32 sub 1. It should be 31 sub 1. And that again is in paragraph paragraph 31 sub 3. The reference to 32 sub 1 should be 31 sub 1.
Okay, Councillor Day, you had a question? There's no motion on the floor, so it better be a question.
Yeah, the question is to staff before the motion gets on the floor. These operators have said that if they can't, if they don't want to lose a business license, and if they're going to lose a business license, then they're willing to look at another location. So I'm worried that if we put this on the floor and we have the vote and the license is gone potentially, how do we then work with them if they don't have a license after that vote?
Yeah. Through the chair to Councillor Day, the report and the motion in front of you today is to cancel their business license. And this would be canceling their license in all of the city of Richmond. My understanding is that they were offered other locations and declined to consider those other locations. And so it is on that basis that we proceeded with this cancellation.
So to Mayor Brody, being the chair of the committee, how can we move forward given that the proponents have said they are willing to move if that's the only choice? But if we vote right now and we vote to take away their license, then we don't have anything to work with. How does this work?
Well, to staff, so if they wanted to do something else, so they still want to go to Crestwood Park or something, wouldn't they then make application for an appropriate business license? Wouldn't that be the upshot of it all?
Yes, that is correct. After they could apply for a new license and a new location, and they would go through the temporary commercial use permit for that new location. As part of the offering of moving them from the Steveston, they would have maintained their license in the new location and at Crestwood, but instead we have proceeded with this cancellation. So if their license is canceled, they will have to make new application for both their license and any location that they want us to consider.
And secondly, didn't, now the other one, Salties, weeks ago you worked with them, they've moved their location. Didn't you give Shameless Buns the same opportunity to consider other alternatives?
That's correct.
And nothing happened on that for this group?
We have it.
Mine.
No. For the delegations, I'm sorry, you're finished with your submissions. If you could please mute them. Go ahead, Ms. Williams.
Yes, both Shameless and Salties were offered a different location at the same time. Salties took us up on the offer, signed a license agreement to move. Shameless did not.
All right. Councillor McNulty.
Just following up on that for the record, how many places were they offered and where were they offered?
I will forward that to Katie Furland.
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, initially we identified 2 suitable locations in Steveston, and that was Britannia Heritage Shipyard and Branscombe House. And those were based on a number of location criteria, including access to public washrooms, having parking on site, local power, and those kinds of things. Those were the 2 options presented to both Salties and Shameless Buns.
So if I may just, Your Worship, follow up on that. Thank you for that. I think it needs to be recorded in the record that the others were offered. And these were the other than Britannia, the Branscombe House was the other option. These were the only ones that staff was able to consider given previous direction. Is that not correct?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, that's correct.
Given the situation we're in. So
that's correct.
Terra Nova was not offered specifically, and the one that was mentioned by the delegation was not offered that they go there on a permanent basis.
All right, Councillor Wolf.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair to, actually, question the chair. Can I ask a question back to the delegates? And something has just come up as a result of the last discussion here.
Once we finish with staff, we'll go back to the delegates.
Okay, then my question to staff, maybe then that might answer it as well. I guess two parts. I know in our report on the business license application page, it's our page 13, it does list both of the locations, Steveston Hub and Crestwood Corporate Center. But it seemed to me, I could see some body language, some facial reaction, that it was a surprise that the business license cancellation being discussed today would be occurring at both places. Was that effectively communicated with them, or was the? This is what I wanted to ask them after: is did they think that this was just one of the sites, but the other site would remain? So that's one question. Maybe I'll let you answer that first.
Okay, through the chair to Councillor Wolf, in a discussion, I did mention that verbally to Shameless Buns, and my intent of doing that was to make sure they understood that if we went forward with this business license cancellation, it means they have no business license in Richmond. And then further, that is in the materials that were provided. The materials provided, the report lists the locations where they were licensed to operate and then discusses rejecting that license.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, just a follow-up question to staff at this time. It's again, I just with the screens, I could see one finger being held up by the delegates, but staff were saying there were two options. So I'm not sure if staff can clarify that indeed they were offered two equally weighted options, or was it just one option with the mention of a second? Do we know that?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, staff very clearly offered Shameless Buns two locations, Branscombe House and Britannia Heritage Shipyards. We reached out to them the morning after the council meeting that occurred on the 26th. So we spoke to them on the 27th, and we put both those options forward. Initially, we offered Branscombe House because Salties had agreed to Britannia. They indicated that was not their option, and they declined both.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Howe.
Yes, Your Worship. I want to ask our lawyer a procedural question. I have a question about the procedural fairness. Now, it seems like to me that we offered two locations to the food truck owner, and they disagree, or we can say they refused, and then they insist to bring this to the to council for a hearing. Now, I get the impression that we are saying that if they lost this appeal, their license being canceled, they cannot reapply for a license. Would that be unfair in terms of procedure? Because I think they're entitled to bring this to an appeal.
Tony?
And that shouldn't be a condition.
Tony?
Through your worship to Councillor Al, they are entitled to apply. This hearing is purely about the cancellation of the business license. It does not preclude a future application.
Okay.
So that was miscommunicated to your Councillor Al.
So would it be possible that for council to decide that, okay, we give this another week or 2 weeks to work out for a solution to a new location without canceling the license right now, today? Would that be an option for council?
Through your worship to Councillor Al, it is open to council to delay the cancellation or put a date that the cancellation is effective in a week from today. However, to place another condition where there's a requirement to negotiate an agreement, in my view, would go beyond what would be contemplated by the legislative scheme. So it's simply a decision not to, that the cancellation would be effective as of a specific date, but not a decision to make it conditional upon something such as the negotiation of a new location as you've described.
Good. Thanks for the clarification.
Just before we go to Councillor McPhail, on that same line, like the staff recommends that the business license issued for Bayview, for Moncton, for Commerce Parkway be canceled. But can it be, could we say it's only one of those that's canceled or two of those that's canceled instead of all three? Is that possible?
Through your worship, to council, I would say that that is not within the realm of what would be permissible under the legislation. There's a single business license which is being considered for cancellation. This is not a hearing for an amendment to a business license, and the grounds for cancellation apply to all sites equally.
All right, thank you. We'll go to Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wondered that as well, but I do have another question. So there was a fee paid with the business license application, and if this was to go through, if council decides to cancel, what happens to that fee? And then what is the fee then to reapply and go through the temporary use permit, if that was what this business decided to do?
My understanding is that they're, through the chair to Councillor McPhail, my understanding is that they would not get their business license fee back. But if I am incorrect on that, happy to be corrected.
How much is it? How much is the fee?
I will just look that up right now and get back to you. It is $140 or less. I think it's slightly less than that, but I could look it up right now.
All right. Councillor McPhail.
We'll get back to you.
Councillor McPhail.
Yeah, that's all. I just wanted to know. And then what is the fee then if they wish to, if we canceled this, there's no refund, what is the fee then to reapply? They'd be charged another fee. Is there the option for council to waive that fee?
All right, well, maybe
through your worship to Councillor McPhail, on the first point, and I heard Carly's reply to that. I do believe that it is open under the circumstances, these unique circumstances, to refund the business license application fee. And as far as the application for the new location, under the regulatory scheme that has now been established by City Council, that fee is of comparable amount to what is currently in the applicant has previously paid.
All right, thank you.
All right, Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. So, just to staff, have you prior to tonight heard that these applicants are prepared to move if the only other alternative is move or not have a license? Has that come up before?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, in my discussions, I had said the intent was to ask them to move, give them locations, and then say that once this went to council, and if council considered rejecting the license, that their license, they would no longer have a license. And it was my understanding, well, I would have to ask the applicant to what extent, to how they understood that.
So you have no recollection of them prior to tonight saying, we'll move if that's the only choice, if we have to lose our license?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, my understanding was I made it very clear to them that their chances to move was happening prior to this hearing, and that after this hearing, their license could be revoked citywide.
Mayor Brody, I think we need to hear from the applicant again, because if they're now willing to, work with staff, that's kind of a game changer.
All right. Any other questions of staff? All right. So we'll go back to the applicants. If you could unmute their mic. I think, first of all, what did you want to add?
So we just wanted to add that, yes, they did mention the Branscombe House. They said there was talks of that possibly being a location, but it was never approved. We had already said that it's not really a solution from a business perspective. So we are trying to run a business, and that location was not suitable, and neither is Britannia, because it is so far away from where we are. And so if the whole issue is regarding competing with the local businesses in Steveston, we said we'd be okay to go to Terra Nova Park, where there's literally no one there. You know, that's, we had said that on some, we had said, like, just Britannia is not something that is a good for us because of the fact that the traffic is not there and that the merchants wouldn't benefit from us being there. And I think that we just want to listen that we do bring traffic into Steveston. And the fact that no one is paying attention to this, there are boutiques and hair salons and coffee shops and other places that need us there, that are so happy to have us there. No one is paying attention to that. And everyone is just focusing on this bylaw now about this parking lot. And, you know, it's not fair. And the fact is that, you know, like, if it's just about the money, we would have moved and not cared. But there are so many other factors to this. The fact that we pay the Steveston Hub, and that goes directly back in the city. And the fact that, you know, we offer something that nobody else has. And that's all we're asking for. And the fact that, again, it's a double standard. You are telling us you are violating a bylaw that is being violated everywhere.
All
the
right.
farmers market, food trucks.
I think you're repeating your first submissions.
Because no one's listening to us.
All right. We'll go to Ms. Williams. Carly, you have more to add.
Yes, thank you to the chair. I've confirmed the licensing fee for mobile vendors is $87 a year. So that $87, yeah. And to reapply.
The amount, but it wasn't $87.
And we also paid $52 to amend it because when we decided to go to Steveston, Victor Duarte said you have to apply to amend it. Already had a license for Crestwood, and then we paid an extra $52 just to add Steveston Hub parking lot to that license. So we paid extra.
Okay, to the chair, there is a price for amending it. It's true but the licensing fee they paid, yeah, is $87 plus the $50 to amend it. If they were to apply for a new location, there's also $100 for a temporary commercial use permit. And we do not have an application fee, so we can't. We just have a license fee.
All right, Councilor McNulty, you had a question for the delegation?
No, I had a question, staff.
Okay,
If I may.
I want to finish with the delegation. Councilor McPhail is yours of the delegation.
Yes, it is, Your Worship. Thank you, and through you to the delegation. I believe you mentioned that you pay the Steveston Hub $250, and so in our package, we have a letter from Lighthouse Church saying you pay $200. So I'm just wondering what is correct then.
We pay $250. I'm not sure why it says that, but we do pay $250. We can
Each time we're there.
We can provide bank transactions if you really want to dig into that. You can also go to the Steveston Hub directors, Darren and Nick, and they'll confirm it. So it is 100% $250. That was clearly an error.
And then Steveston Hub, they're not the owner of that property, though, I believe. I believe they are not the owner. Is that correct?
I believe they're the leaseholders.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Wolf, you've got questions of the delegation.
Yes, thank you. My question through you to delegates was the same question I mentioned earlier, was did you know that both of your locations, the Crestwood corporate area, would also be part of the cancellation tonight?
We did. We knew that we would 100% not be allowed to operate in Richmond if our license was revoked.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
We're aware.
All right, so we're going back to staff, if you could mute the mics. Councilor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. A question to staff. The only other site that is available since the current sites are not satisfactory to the city. Is the only alternative left is Branscombe? Is that not what I'm understanding? And that has been refused.
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, those are the two locations identified in Steveston, and those locations have both been refused by Shameless Buns.
Okay, were there any other sites considered?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, there were other sites considered, but they didn't meet the criteria. There were certain things we wanted to achieve. We wanted to ensure there was adequate parking, washrooms, space for people to move around. So these were the two sites that met that criteria.
The delegation mentioned Terra Nova. There's a lot of traffic up there on a weekend, but that was not satisfactory. Was that brought into as another place within the city?
Through the chair to
Is that
Councillor
on your radar?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, it is on our radar as a general location for mobile food vendors. For this particular file, we were focused on identifying locations in Steveston.
Okay, so you weren't necessarily looking for another place for them. Oh, okay. Given following up, if their license is canceled, they can reapply for a license at Crestwood, can they not?
Staff has said
Through the
yes.
chair to Councillor, through the chair to Councillor McNulty, yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. Okay. All right. A lot of some of the rhetoric that's here, there's really no empirical evidence of it, Your Worship. So I'd like to move the staff recommendation to put it on the table for discussion.
All right, so it's moved and seconded. Councillor Day?
Yeah.
Councillor Day? You're muted.
Sorry about that, technology. I'd like to move amendment to it that this be delayed for 1 week and that staff be directed to look at the Terra Nova location, since the applicants have indicated that would be an acceptable option for them.
Second.
So just a minute, just hold it a sec. So you're moving a referral back to staff for staff to discuss further options with them, such as Terra Nova, and to bring it back to a special council meeting 4 o'clock next Monday, right?
Yes.
Okay, is that seconded? All right.
That'll be Tuesday because it's the holiday, right?
That is seconded. So we are now on a referral. Councillor Liu, are you on the referral?
It'll come back on Tuesday because Monday's a holiday, is that correct?
Oh, yes, okay. We'll make that amendment, right? Or we could come in on Monday. Okay, but did you have something on the referral?
I think that it's reasonable to consider to give Shameless Buns and staff another opportunity to come together and discuss other possibilities within Richmond. And so, if the locations offered in Steveston aren't going to work out, I think it's reasonable to consider that. Otherwise I'd be amenable to just putting forward their fees paid to date towards their reapplication of wherever they are looking to apply to be. So I think what we're hoping for is something that is fair and still creates them to have opportunities in Richmond and doesn't seem as heavy-handed as just canceling business licenses. So I think that's fair.
So it's on the referral. Councillor McNulty, are you on the referral?
Yeah, on the referral, do the proponents get to still operate then under the current terms while this is being discussed?
Yeah, their license hasn't been canceled.
Okay, on the referral, I think we are limiting staff by pointing out one place. I asked the question earlier, what was considered in Richmond? And I believe that to postpone it for just one, which we've already been told by the delegation that Terra Nova was not acceptable. My question, what is available that meet some of the criteria that staff are putting forward in the four corners of Richmond. There may be better places somewhere else, but if we just say Terra Nova, we're spinning our wheel, and I think that needs to be open if we're going to refer it back, as opposed to dealing with the issue.
I think the motion, and I'll ask the clerks to confirm this, the motion was to discuss it generally with staff. I don't think we put a location criterion, did we?
Your Worship, the current motion is that consideration of the report be referred back to discuss location options such as Terra Nova and bring back a report to a special council meeting on May 25th.
Okay, so it's locations such as Terra Nova, it's not specifically Terra Nova.
Okay.
Okay, let's see who I got. Councillor Au.
Your Worship, yeah, thanks for that clarification, because I also want to make sure that this is not only about Terra Nova as an option. And I think basically, we have to try to find a solution to the problem. And I think the operators are suffering financially because of the cancellation. And I think we are not here to punish them. And so far, it has been only offered to them in the area of Stevenston. So if they can consider or being offered options outside of Stevenston and consider that, I think we should go for that route so that they can have a solution to the problem. So I will support the referral motion.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you. I will support the referral motion as well. I just wanted to comment. I also don't want to see the disruption of the service that they provide in their other location, if that is possible. So I think it's a win-win for all sides and the whole community if we can come to a decision by next week. I have confidence that will happen. Thanks.
Now, Councillor Liu, I've got your hand still. It's still to speak. Are you still wanting to speak on the referral? It's not up.
Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, no problem. I just want to add, I'll support this referral, but I hope that the applicants here understand that this is trying to work with the business license holders. This is not a sign that we don't have strong feelings on it. And I have to say that had the applicants spoken to staff in a constructive manner before, this could have probably been ironed out by this time. So, but in the meantime, I'll support the referral, but the matter does come back to us on Tuesday. Now, I've got a question for staff. So if, let's say you come up with location X, okay, they don't have a business license for location X. How does that work? Do they have to have an amendment to their license? Would you make that amendment to their license? Is that how it works? And delete Steveston and put in location X?
Yeah, through the chair, the process here is that if they agree in principle to a new location, first of all, we have to work with them to sign a license agreement for that location, a license agreement with Parks as sort of the, if it was to be a Parks property. So that may take some time. Then we would then amend their business license. And then if they were amenable to it, we would voluntarily, we would change their business license to indicate the new location. So I was going to have a question to council about that. This can take longer than a week to have a deal inked and everything finalized. So we could certainly, if we don't have a deal in principle, we could come back to council, or we could wait to make sure that we have the deal if we find a location.
From my point of view, I would encourage staff to make make whatever arrangements by the due date, bearing in mind that they are operating basically under protest where they are now, and they're going to still operate there. So that's, if they stopped operating, period, probably we could give as long as you want. But the fact is, that puts us under pressure to get it back to council to get approval for whatever they're going to do. So, you know, we realize staff can't work miracles, but you can always let us know what's going on. Councillor McNulty, you had a question? We're still on referral.
Yeah, I was just going to support what you said, Your Worship. I believe the delegation has heard the sentiments around the table that the site is not satisfactory and they're moving somewhere. So I think staff need to come the options and come back with, even if it's only in principle, on Tuesday. And this is what we're proposing, even if the final issue is not signed, sealed, or whatever. Council can give further direction at that time. I don't want to see us spinning our wheels anymore. One of the clients worked out something amicably. There is a reticent here to move from Steveston, and that's coming across loud and clear. And I think we're trying to be fair. I think they have to understand where we're coming from as well. Thank you.
Okay, so on referral till a week tomorrow after the long weekend, I'm going to call the question on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that is carried. Someone want to move adjournment?
Move adjournment.
All right. Just in 1 second, if you let me get adjusted here, I'll call the general purposes meeting to order. Just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to call to order the General Purposes Committee meeting, the open meeting. I circulated an email to everybody today. Hopefully you got it. I would like to add number 6 at the end of the agenda, traffic intersection cameras, and we can talk about that, the form of that when we get there. So may I have a motion on the agenda with that amendment? Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? All those in favor, opposed, carried. So may I have a motion on the minutes? Moved and seconded. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And you've got the next committee meeting date. Then we head into the business, the supply and delivery of Microsoft licensing. To staff, anything you want to add to the report?
Thank you, Your Worship. We have nothing further to add at this time.
Move the recommendation.
Okay, that's moved and seconded. Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. I read this report, and unfortunately, when it comes to computers, I'm a bit of a inexperienced. When you say a perpetual license model, does that mean that we don't have to keep coming back again and again and again to renegotiate? And tell me how that works, please.
Through the chair to Councillor Day, yes, that's correct. A perpetual license means that you own the license in perpetuity. You can keep on using it forever.
I love it. Thank you. That simplifies everything.
You're welcome.
That's why I'm still using my IBM PC. All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Then we get to the Oracle RAC Enterprise, et cetera, et cetera. Staff want to add anything to their report on this one?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing to add, but I'm open to
Move
questions.
the recommendation.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded. Councillor Day?
Thank you, Mayor Brody, once again, newbie on this computer stuff. So, okay, Oracle is the company we're going to go with. Does it save us money if we go from the SPART CT5-2 to the SPART CT8-1? It's like, rather than go to a whole other system, just staying within that system, does that save us money?
Yes, that's correct. Through the chair to Councillor, we typically budget on a 5 to 7 year cycle, and moving our databases to the cloud, which we looked at, did not make financial sense. And staying with the newer version of Solaris, Spark servers, will allow us to save money over the 5 years.
Sounds good to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? We'll call the question then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is carried. Okay, then we've got the Zodiac Karaoke and Pub Inc. on Alexander Road. Carly, anything to add to your meeting or to your report?
Yes, there is something I would like to add. So since this report was finalized and sent forward to the committee, we were notified in a change in the consultants who are handling this application. The previous consultant that prepared the application, Rising Tide, is no longer working with this applicant, and I believe council received a memo as such. They have a new consultant working with them on this application, and I believe a representative of the business, Zodiac Karaoke, plus the new consultant are here to answer any questions.
Okay.
Move the recommendation.
No, before we get to there, we've got a couple of delegations who have characterized themselves as being available for questions, Stephen Barron and Kenny Gu. Is there anything to add to those delegations? Is there anything to add, or you just want to answer any questions if there are any?
Your Honor, we're just here to answer any questions.
All right. Did I hear someone wanting to move this?
Move the recommendation.
Moved and seconded. Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. So in the report, it states that in the other location, Zodiac did have some bylaw infractions, mostly to do with smoking. Does their previous record go with them to the new location, or do they get a clean slate?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, I think that their previous record will form part of the history. So should this, though it is a new business, should we have problems with this business, it would be our practice to present to council the previous event that had happened for council's consideration, although any problems ought to be considered on the merit of that specific issue.
Okay, so hopefully they've learned from the previous infractions and we won't have any more issues. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion? No.
So moved.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I've already got it.
Yeah, you have.
It's already on the table. Okay. So then we call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Then we have soil use for the placement of fill application, etc. Carly Williams, did you have anything to add to your report?
I have nothing to add, but once again, the applicants for this application are here to answer questions.
All right. So we've got Barry Ma, Daniel Lamhanwa, Ming Wu, and Kevin Wu, who are all part of this application, should there be any questions. So, Councillor Wolf, do you have a question?
Thank you. My question is to staff. Through reading the report and actually the former report, August 2021, there's something in there that I thought was relevant that I wanted to bring up. So a little bit of confusion around this I have is where this is deemed wood waste, and on page 56 and stuff, it outlines a few things. One is it mentions that one of the additional purposes of this whole proposal, in addition to improving the agricultural capability, is to cap the wood waste. But in the second last paragraph there, it talks about this property owner is not required to advise the province of what has occurred on site. So then I'm confused by that, because here it says it's this dumping of untreated wood waste is not considered contaminated. So to have this proposal, if it's not contaminated waste, I know around the process of decomposition, but just the scale of what's proposed here, the amount of soil that would be brought in to cap something that the province and its jurisdiction doesn't deem a hazard that they would even need to notify. It seems, I'm not sure if staff can comment on that aspect of this.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, this is not in my area of expertise, other than to say that we did look into this, and that the problem has been with the changing legislation. And at the time that the wood waste was put there, it wasn't a prohibited activity. And so now we have an owner who is looking to improve, to actually use this land to grow something on, and has discovered this issue. And this property owner has determined that while the law could stipulate that they could go after the past owner, there's a considerable amount of time and expense involved in that. And so it's their option to, rather than go into a legal battle with the former owner, to remediate the land and improve the agricultural capability. So I'm not sure. So yes, there's no statutory requirement to notify the province. I can't speak to the provincial guidelines. We did check into it as we were preparing the report. The applicant themselves may have some more information on that.
Thank you. And if I could follow up, through your worship, to staff then. I guess noting that the report also mentions that there's not going to be any impact to the surrounding area, the ESA that wraps around a few sides of this property. There's a call for a lot of soil to go on top here, and to say that there'll be no impact. I know how drainage impacts edge effect when there's something done, like bringing in a lot of fill and compacting it down. But I also know dealing with a flood in my property last weekend, if it was negligent what the previous owner did, then I think it should be handled by the courts. The pipe that burst, it was not in that case for me, but in this case, somebody actively dumped something there that, sure, at the time maybe wasn't illegal, but under the time when this property was sold, it is an illegal act. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I have a few points of. So the problem is that this wood is untreated, and so there's no provincial requirement to declare it as contaminated. It's untreated wood, and so the problem would be that if this wood was exposed to the air and allowed to be mixing with air and water, then it would break down and cause a problem. But as it is now, and as it's left in place, it won't, and is not causing a problem. And so the owner is hoping to keep it that way and to be able to use the land to grow crops. The other thing to point out is that the neighboring property has already raised their land for their house construction to meet floodplain levels. And so that's one of the reasons that raising this particular property won't impact neighboring lands, because the neighboring building site has already been raised. I'm sorry, I think, was those all the questions? I was just trying to go through all of your questions. So that's why we feel that, and that's why the consultants are saying there won't be a drainage impact, and why they're proceeding the way that they are.
All right.
Thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, just following up, two things. Are we implying the Kavanaugh procedures on this soil fill? And my first question, I'll lay them on and maybe you can answer them all at once. Who's going to supervise the truckloads coming in of this material? Because that's part of the Kavanaugh procedures that we've required of him to do it. And the other question, who's going to supervise when the time comes of soil? And where are they going to get the soil? Because we made Kavanaugh get it from through Hextall from Richmond. And we know there's not enough soil in Richmond, so we let others go to Delta through Hextall again. So I'm assuming, if this is approved by the ALC, that we would follow our process that we've basically established, and everybody would be following the same process and same checklist. So how are they going to do this?
Let's get an answer.
Yeah. Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, yes, they're following what we're starting to call as the Kavanaugh procedures. That's outlined for you on GP 58. All sites are following those procedures. The other thing is that there is no restrictions on the Kavanaugh site for where soil is coming from, and in fact, they're taking soil from outside of Richmond. The requirement, and that was brought up when this issue came before council the last time that was brought up. That's the reason for the memo. We asked the consultant where they would take soil from, and we asked for a recommendation as to whether we should restrict soil. And so that's just the topic of the staff memo is to explain why, as staff, we do not recommend restricting the soil to Richmond only, that we recommend that it should be based on the attributes of the soil and making sure that it's right for the project and for agriculture and not limited to within Richmond. We also got information, we got confirmation from the ALC that they do not restrict where soil comes from. That's not something that they look at, and so it's very difficult for us to put a requirement. Council may recall that our new soil bylaw assigns a volume fee to soil brought on site, and so the intention of that is we're hoping to regulate and to make it more like better to use Richmond soil, because if they take soil from outside of Richmond, they pay more in a volume fee. Incentivize, that's the word I'm looking for. So we're hoping to incentivize using Richmond soil by using that volume fee. I feel like there was one more question you had. We talked about...
You've answered them. I guess my question here is, in the Kavanaugh procedures, each truckload was documented where it came from, and it was usually monitored and regulated. You used the word regulated, and I support you 100% on the regulation, and also the frequent inspection of what is coming in to that. So, yes, we did not specify that Richmond was the only place, because there's no more soil left in Richmond with this kind of volume, and we do have to go elsewhere. However, we can inspect truckloads and document everyone that's coming in. And we know that there's, as was mentioned earlier, there's a lot of soil coming into some of these places. So, thank you. Okay.
All right, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Further comments? All those, Councillor Day. You're muted, Carol.
Sorry, I'm going to learn this eventually. I am concerned that native soil is going to be removed. On at GP 50, it says that. Can it be saved and reinstalled, or can we move it to the Garden City land?
On GP 50?
Yeah. So, let's see, it says on the top paragraph, excavating and removing native soil and replacing soil with untreated wood waste. So that native soil, is that going to be like put aside and then reused on the property, or is that native soil going to leave and could it go to the Garden City land?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, sorry, what that says is that it was 38 years ago they excavated the native soil and put the wood waste in.
Oh, good Lord. I'm sorry. Yes, of course it does. I thought they were going to do the same thing again.
Yeah.
Okay, and then my last question is there a tipping fee for bringing in wood waste? Or they're not going to bring in any at all? They're just going to stick with soil? Because I thought they were going to toss the wood waste and then put the soil?
No. Through the chair to Councillor Day, they're not bringing wood waste in, and they're certainly not going to touch what's there either.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry for the confusion.
Councillor Steves.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I question how the wood waste got there and when, but I'm not going to argue that case because that was a long time ago. But we did have a soil bylaw that Richmond operated back at that time, not the province. And it was the provincial government took away our soil bylaw around 1998 or 2000, and didn't give it back to us till recently. But at one time, like in 1987, we refused to allow soil to come in from Expo, for example, because our soil bylaw was very, very strong. So this may have come in contrary to our soil bylaw. I don't know, but had we known about it, I think it would have been up to Richmond to have stopped it. However, I'll just let that go by because that's a long time ago. I would like to say that the report we got on alternate locations is excellent. That's really what we've been looking at for a long time. We've said Richmond or Delta soils, but really, I know there's areas in Burnaby and Vancouver and places that have got similar soils that most of them have just been bulldozed and destroyed. But if there is anything left, there are some good soils around the valley, and this report has documented them. So I thank the Madrone and also McTavish for that, because that's what should have been done a long time ago. I will support it going to the Land Commission.
Okay, with that, let's call the question then on the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? So that's carried with Councillor Wolf opposed. Then we have the item from Councillors Liu and McPhail on the hospital. You're muted, Linda and Alexa, whoever is speaking. Linda, you're muted still. There you go. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I think the recommendation speaks for itself, but I think I first off wanted to congratulate the Richmond Hospital Foundation for achieving this tremendous goal of raising $50 million. And I think all of council, like myself, was really disappointed when the provincial came out. There really was nothing in there about the replacement of the acute care tower. I was recently at emergency in March, and the care was excellent, but the building is just so depressing. And I think that we need to stand up again for the citizens of Richmond and pursue this further with the government and with our MLAs, and I hope that everybody will be supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, so let's get it on the floor.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Councillor McNulty, you had your hand up?
I'd like to, yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I thank both Councillor McPhail and Liu for bringing it forward. I think it's very timely. I do have a couple comments to it, and I agree we need to stand up for the people of Richmond. And we know what happened with the previous government. We couldn't get anywhere. Does this resolution ask for the business plan of the new enriched NDP suggestions for the acute tower? You remember there was a promise when it was announced, and there was some embellishment on the original business plan. And the other question, is there in here a question on requesting a timeline and breakdown of when we expect to see shovels in the ground? I would support the resolution no end, but I think it's critical that we make sure that we're talking about what was, I believe people will accept the new changes that were there and announce that day. Many of you were all there when that was announced, and everybody stood up and batted themselves on the chest and say, this is what we're going to suggest. And that's fine. But also, Your Worship, I believe the timeline needs to be put in there. We need to request, when is this really going to happen? Because we have to look after the safety of our people in there. If we get an earth tremor, we know it will collapse, and we will lose lives in there and our valuable resources and patients. So those two things, I'd like to make sure that that's part of what we're asking for. Thank you.
I'll go to Councillor McPhail or Liu. It seems to me that the business plan is for the larger enterprise that was announced. And secondly, in number 3, you're asking for discussing the funding and timeline.
Yes.
Does one of you want to add to that or something?
But Your Worship, that's with the MLAs. I think we need to ask the province, the number one person in the province, Premier Horgan, what is his timeline? Thank you.
Your Worship, we could perhaps, in number 1, after confirmation of funding, add a timeline for building. Yes, in July of 2020, the Premier announced the new expanded plan. Then there was the provincial election, and then Vancouver Coastal Health submitted to the new government the business case for the new expanded plan.
All right, so why don't we add in number 1 of the funding and commencement of construction? Okay, is that friendly with everybody? Okay, Councillor Day.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Councillors Liu and McPhail for bringing this forward. It is certainly a timely question, and it should be answered. You know, I spent a lot of time in Richmond Hospital with my parents prior to their death last year and this year, and I agree, it is really in rough shape. I have to tell you, the staff deserve medals for working there. My only concern is that I wonder if there's something going on behind the scenes that could potentially benefit this letter, because staff have no doubt been in constant contact with the minister's office, and I know there's been the revised plan. So is there something we need to know before we write this in ink? So any staff members?
Through the mayor to Councillor Day, I can confirm that staff are working with the project team, the Richmond Hospital Acute Tower Replacement project team, but there's no additional information that I'm aware of nor can share that would impact the writing of this letter.
Okay, then let's light a fire. Thank you.
Councillor Al.
Yes, Your Worship, I believe that we have to follow up with this issue, and I think this is very important to Richmond. And I think repeatedly we're being told that it's so close to the actual beginning of the work. And sometime last year, we're being told that September last year would be the time for a formal announcement of the time, the schedule. So I shared the concern with Councillor McPhail and Councillor Liu that this budget is basically silent on this issue. So I think, yes, we have to follow up with this and asking questions.
All right, let's call the question then on the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And the addition to the item, or to the agenda, which I sought to add there, I think you've all got the resolution, the whereases and the resolution. If there's anyone who doesn't, we can put it on the screen for you. So you've presumably you've gotten it, you've read through it. I think it's fairly straight ahead. It just seems to me we've had this crazy situation. Bad guys are escaping from a shootout at the airport. They go through intersection cameras, and the privacy commissioner is worried about the bad guys who are doing the shooting and their right to privacy. It is a complete, it's just an abomination. It's an aberration as to what the situation should be. Now, I'm not saying that we should have no control over the images, but they should be allowed to be in high definition. And secondly, there can be a procedure for judicial review or something like that before they are actually used. But surely that's the way to safeguard the rights of everybody. I can't think of anything better in the investigation of that shootout than having the traffic intersection cameras showing exactly what happened. And that's the gist of this whole motion. So we've got some speakers. Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be supporting the recommendation on the floor, and thanks for bringing this forward. I think that we have to support our RCMP and other police forces and make sure they have all the resources they need to tackle this very challenging situation that all of the Lower Mainland is in. And I did have a question to you, perhaps to staff. I recently saw an interview with the Surrey RCMP, and they talked about they have automatic license plate readers, which they're using now in strategic locations, and they are capable of instantly reading multiple plates and identifying stolen plates on vehicles. So I guess the point of this is that there is other technology that's being used that seems to do the very thing which we were told we couldn't do. So it doesn't seem like we're on a fair ground there.
Through the chair to Councillor McPhail, I think the Surrey RCMP is talking about tools that the RCMP have in their vehicles, because when they are driving down the road, they can instantly read multiple license plate, have license plate recognition, and that is tied to a database. So they have that type capability on the fly.
All right, thank you.
So while you're still there, Councillor McPhail, do you want to move the motion? Okay, moved and seconded.
Second.
Okay. Next up, I've got Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I think this is absolutely critical for the safety of all our citizens in Richmond. And Your Worship, you bringing it up at this time enunciated really where we are in society and what's happening in society. And I think the Privacy Commissioner has to start waking up to what's happening out here. You know, we got a gang war going on in the Lower Mainland, and basically the province, they got problems up in Kelowna, they got problems elsewhere, and he's hiding behind the privacy thing. How does Vancouver handle things when they have the red lights and what have you? I mean, and as Councilor McPhail said, Surrey is doing something. Yes, it's in the RCMP vehicle, but it's still doing, as she said, what we're trying to do, etc. So I think we've got to give everybody, not only our own people in Richmond, the RCMP, the support and resources. We've got to look at the safety of our whole community because of the violence that we're seeing, and it's not going away at the moment, unfortunately. And we have to take every precaution to help our citizens be safe. And this will go a long way, not only with the areas that you suggested, Your Worship, but also the day-to-day safety of our citizens. For example, today I come in to visit with you in the office. A young woman happened to hit a cyclist right in front of the senior center, where there could be a camera, and there were two lights between the green painted crosswalk light and the one going into the senior center. And that particular accident could have been caught on camera and verified. So I think it's absolutely critical, and I think we should have the letter should be very strongly worded, not only to the Privacy Commissioner, but I also think we should let the Premier of the province and the appropriate people in that area know what our intentions are. And I believe, and Worship, you worked on Prime at one time, so you know the many publics, if you wish, that might help influence where we're going with this letter. I don't think it just should be a token letter. I think it should have carbon copies through everybody from the MLAs right through to the Premier, and to try to get this thing through for us. I think the more they get the ink and the more squeaky, maybe we'll get somewhere. Thank you.
All right.
Good job. I appreciate what you brought forward.
Okay, so unless anybody's got qualms about that, I'll add the Premier, a letter to Solicitor General, MLAs, and the Premier. Okay, Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. So I agree that we need to give the police absolutely every tool that is possibly available to them. And if we're allowed to do this, rock on, that's awesome. What I'm concerned with is I did put a call into Victoria today, and to date, the Provincial Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner has not made any changes. So I'm not sure that this letter is going to influence them. And so I wanted to ask staff about that. And the second question I have is, do we not need to be talking to the federal government? Because doesn't this come under the Canadian Charter of Rights and freedom of privacy? And again, I'm for giving all the tools, but are we asking such a big ask that it's just going to be denied? And should we be contacting the federal government as well?
Cecilia?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, as far as we know, ourselves and Surrey are the only two municipalities that actually have the CCTV cameras under very, very strict regulations. You're correct. That is very challenging to do. And I think the mayor's resolution is actually requesting those kinds of changes from a more senior level of government, and it's not asking for the Privacy Commission to change their ruling per se. So I think it's the beginning of quite a few steps, as you have pointed out. There has to be significant changes in what the provincial and federal government's regulations would be.
Okay, so Mayor Brody, further to that, I wonder if we shouldn't also send this letter to the powers that be in Ottawa, given that this is not just a provincial issue, but a national issue as well.
I think this is under the direct purview of the Solicitor General. And I think we should be encouraging the Solicitor General to make changes into the legislation at the provincial level. I think that's, I realize the federal government has a large mandate over criminal law, but the fact is it's the Provincial Privacy Commissioner and his commission. So that's why I think we'll get farther if we simply limit it to the provincial folks and see where we can get. Okay, Councillor Al.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you for bringing this forward. I think this is very critical and timely. And I mean, a few weeks ago, the city gave out the news that we are going to launch these 110 cameras. And people were excited, and people say, oh, wow, that's good. But when I told them that, no, wait a minute, you know, the resolution would be so low that even the license plate cannot be identified. And then they just laughed, saying that, is this a joke? This is not a waste of money. So I think we need to improve on that. And I also remember when we first talked to the Privacy Commissioner, we told them that one reason that we should have a higher resolution is because the airport, the international airport, could be a target of attack by the terrorists. And if that happens, we need to have the information to track or trace the terrorist. Now, of course, you know, what happened 2 weeks ago or last week was not a terrorist attack, but it also shows that anything can happen at the airport. And it's very important that if something really serious happens, we need to have the ability to track the person or the license plate. So I think the example, what happened last week was a good example of the needs of better resolution. Now, I have a question. I don't know if the Privacy Commissioner is really under the jurisdiction of the provincial government. Are they, I mean, is he acting independently, or can he be influenced by the provincial government?
Well, if there's a change in legislation, he can certainly be influenced.
Okay, so he has to work according to the legislation.
Right.
That's okay. Good.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. I too will be supporting this. Thank you for bringing this forward. I think, you know, there's a lot of confusion out there, certainly in the marketplace. It seems that if someone films you doing something on their cell phone, that information seems to be fair game. And, you know, we saw that recently with somebody doing an anti-Asian hate crime the other day. The RCMP asked for the information. Well, here, we, the city, we've invested all this money into this to, you know, create more safety, create more tools for the RCMP and to improve traffic. And somehow we're not allowed to use our own information. Yet someone with a cell phone is allowed to submit that information. So, you know, there seems to be a disconnect. And I think, you know, by us highlighting this and putting this forward, it makes more sense to people. You know, certainly we watch people in the UK, they use cameras there. And if you commit a crime there, the police will come and get you right away. And so I think that's what we want here, and that's what we expect, is that crime is going to be fought. Let's get this forward and get the rules changed.
Thank you. Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had just a couple of questions to staff and then a comment. Do we know where the security files are kept? Like with the current arrangement, with the resolution that's being captured already, where is those files kept? What type of security is over that?
Through the chair to Council Wolf, it is capped at the city. It is capped at the lower resolution for 1 month.
Okay, then to follow up, if it were to change to the higher resolution, would that still remain the same?
Well,
Through your worship.
Just a minute, hold it. The resolution says that we don't mind if there's judicial or other oversight over the process. So that's yet to be determined. If they're making a change, what would be the requirements for that? I think it's perfectly reasonable that there would be judicial oversight on getting your hands on any of those images.
Okay. we're an open meeting, and this came up like a few hours ago, so I'm not willing to support this for reasons I can't disclose.
Okay. I'll just finish it off with a comment. It is beyond my belief that when someone's shooting at the police and our cameras capture that video, that we cannot use that for investigation or for evidence in court. If you are behind, as Councillor Liu said, if you have a cell phone, or if you're behind that car and you get it on your dash cam, there is absolutely no restriction on that. This is inconsistent. This is thinking of helping the bad guys. And frankly, I think to the last point, if you can't support this, you really need to rethink the matter. Councillor Day for the last comment.
Yeah, I move that we go in camera so we can have all of our questions answered because I'm worried about public safety. I'm worried about the police having their hands tied behind their back over something that we may ask or say that has been previously in camera.
Councillor Day, no, that's out of order. There was correspondence about that today. We've had legal advice. This is appropriate for the open meeting, and it shall be considered right here. So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? So it's carried with Councillor Wolf opposed. Someone move adjournment. Okay, we're now adjourned.